When I think back to the beginning of this whole experience, I was super excited because I had already known a problem in my head, and that was with communication in our school between the teachers and then with the parents. A lot of times we had folders, and these folders get messages, and so much stuff is sent home that a lot of parents would just start tossing things out without reading anything. And I really wanted to think of a way that we might correct this behavior, or something that might be a little bit easier for parents to handle instead of feeling overwhelmed by a folder full of flyers. So when I saw Bloomz and I had heard about it from teacher posts and blogs that I had been on before, I decided to research it a little bit more, and I really liked what I saw. I saw a free product, and all teachers like free, that allowed us to use the site how we wanted to and really help bridge that communication gap. So I was excited to present this to my curriculum coach and have him look over it with me. From there, I wanted to present it as like a big school-wide event, show every grade level what it was, and try to get them on board with me. And that was back in September. Well, for our area, September wasn't our best month. When it was time to start planning and get everything together, I had my information ready, I had my class set up, I was going to present it, and the day came for me to present, and we had a hurricane. So hurricanes and then flooding in our area were super bad, and we had to evacuate, pack up our rooms a bit to get them prepared. There were sandbags. It was a mess. By the time we came back, I really had to kind of step back and reevaluate things because the curriculum coach had so many other things to share with our staff, and my project was kind of put to the side. So I had to become flexible, and I had to really think about what I could do to still reach out to a bunch of different faculty who could be interested. So that was a learning experience in itself, and learning to be flexible was probably the first lesson that I learned, because you just don't know what's going to happen within your school. You might have plans to do something one day, but the next day, your administration tells you have to do so many other things. So that was my first obstacle. So when I stepped back and reevaluated everything, I was like, well, maybe I was thinking too grand. Why don't I start with a smaller, more concentrated group of people that I can communicate with easier, and then from there I can just see if it'll build, and then in the meantime I can make videos to help people. Because just from experience, a lot of people in my school in particular really appreciate it when things are sent through email, or it's easily accessible to them outside of school, so it doesn't have to be something during their time of the school day, because everybody knows planning period is a sacred time and you don't want to interrupt it. So that was something that started clicking in my head, and I started making all these little tutorials on Screencast-O-Matic, and that was probably my favorite part. I feel so comfortable speaking to the microphone and directing people through the Screencast-O-Matic as I show them how to explore something. So I learned that that's what I think one of my strengths was, walking people through something. And I could appreciate the tutorials because a lot of the classes that I've taken through this offered me different types of tutorials as well. And I was able to follow things step by step and really learn along the way. You can always pause a video, you can rewind it, you can do it as many times as you need to. And I figured a lot of people are going to need that. So I think that was one of my strengths, was creating the tutorials to help further teach people when I wasn't necessarily available as their technology specialist. So that was my big breakthrough, I think. When I did a whole group lesson with my first grade team, it went well, but I think one of my weaknesses is I try to fit too much into a short amount of time. And just like anybody, that can get really overwhelming. So a lot of them were coming to me with questions Well, how do I do this? Where on the website would I find this? So that also helped prompt me to make tutorials more guided towards specific aspects of Bloomz for them, because certain people wanted certain things. I had one teammate, she was extremely interested in parent communication, which is great because that's what we were trying to accomplish here. And then someone else was more focused on classroom management for behavior issues, and that's fine too. And then from there, it was just a matter of learning how to navigate the site itself, because if you play with it, I felt you could easily figure things out, because that's how I taught myself. So again, it was just everybody had different needs, and I needed to realize that, and I needed to listen. So I learned that as well, that I had to listen so that I knew who my clients were and what it was that they wanted. So that was a really, that was a good point for me. And then the best part of everything is during this process, as everybody started using it on my team, well, in a school, a lot of people visit each other, so then all of a sudden kindergarten hears about it, and then they have questions. Well, I would love to answer all their questions, but you know, we only have so much time in the day, and different grade levels have different planning times, so I couldn't go meet everybody like I wanted to. And that's when I was like, okay, well, let me just start posting these on YouTube, and the teachers can access them whenever they want, you know, and then after school, if they have questions, they can always set up a time to meet with me, and I can get them started and get them going, and that worked out really well. My hope is that by next year, the kindergarten class, who I still plan on working with, I hope that they will be able to take what they've used and pass it on, because if the kindergarten parents become used to this, that means when the transition comes to first grade, they'll already be familiar with the process of communicating with everybody, which is a huge thing for us. So as far as how did the communication go in general, I would say of our first grade team, we had a lot of positive responses. We were able to get in touch with a lot of people, more so than we would have in the past. We really want to increase that communication, because as the grade levels get higher and higher, communication gets even more and more important, not just at the early age. A lot of parents signed up right away with the Bloomz app. Several of them were confused, which we kind of expected, but you know, they were always willing to come in, learn. We could always walk them through it, since you can just do it on your phone. And then I think in any situation that we kind of have to all just be okay with, there were those parents who, no matter what you did or despite your best efforts, they just were not interested. They did not want to sign up, or they had an excuse. I don't have a phone this week, or my number just got turned off, or I just changed my number. I'll have to add your app again later. Do you have another paper with your code on it? So there was an excuse all the time, but that is just sort of what comes with the territory where we teach. So again, it's just one of those things where if we keep implementing this each year, we might see more and more responses, and it's going to have to start at the younger level. If we can get our kindergarten parents already set up, that means next year will be an easier transition. Hopefully, what I'd like to see is that next year I can get second grade on board, and we can start getting the parents from first grade to go into the second grade classrooms under Bloomz, and they'll already be familiar. And when there's a sense of familiarity, I think that we tend to see more of a positive result. So overall, this experience was a little bit of work. Again, the planning part, you can't plan for Mother Nature all the time. But other than that, you know, I had a very good support group at my school, and I had very willing participants. And I really just needed to learn to be flexible, because nothing can always go perfectly planned. But overall, I would say that we did really work on bridging the gap of communication this year. I know that personally, from my experience, I have more parents that are in the know this year and not asking as many questions about when certain events are happening, or they're not saying, well, I never saw a note on that, because anytime I send a notice on their phone, it's going to ding and show, hey, you have a new notification, so they can't really use that anymore as an excuse. So overall, I would say that this was a success. I continue to learn from it, and I want to continue to use this, and even though the whole experience is over, I still want to teach others how to use the Bloomz app, because I really think it'll be a good app for teachers in our school. So overall, I would say everything went really well.